Today, I found the book called The Courage to be Disliked. Ranks 4th on the Kindle's top 100 bestsellers list. The authors are Japanese philosopher Ichiro Kishimi and freelance writer Fumitake Koga. I read the Japanese version of the book about 5 years ago because I was working in Japan at that time. I evaluate myself as having a pleasing personality because I care about other people's opinions, which often make me feel tired. If I accidentally make people unhappy or fail to satisfy others, I feel frustrated and even blame myself. I chose this book because I thought I lacked this kind of courage. This is a book about the psychology of Alfred Adler, known as the father of self-enlightenment, one of the three giants of psychology, along with Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. I hope to find ways to make my life easier. The book introduces Adler's psychology through 5 nights of debate and dialogue between a philosopher and a young man. When I first started reading it, I had almost the same reaction as the young man, which was incredible, incomprehensible, and impossible. However, I gradually accepted these ideas as I carefully studied the examples and solutions of philosophers to each problem. One of the quick fixes I've learned is to keep your subjects separate from others. Adler's psychology believes that all troubles are rooted in interpersonal relationships, or having something to do with others. So how to deal with interpersonal relations becomes particularly important. We do the same thing, different people will have different comments, so that we can never please everyone. This truth is known to all, but we still don't want to be hated by anyone, which causes endless pains for ourselves. Adler's approach is the separation of subjects. How to do a good job is our own subject. Do not care about what your boss or colleagues expect. We do not work to cater to others. What other people think and evaluate are their subjects. However, we sometimes also think, how difficult it is to accomplish this subject, why no one praised me, or I have worked so hard, why he is not satisfied, and so on. These are that we're annoyed for the other's subjects. We should not interfere in other people's subjects, and we should not let others interfere in ours. So how do you know which is whose subject? The subject belongs to the person who bears the consequences of the matter. So how do you prevent people from interfering with you? It's not asking for recognition. In the book, a young man went to a college that his parents think was good in order to gain his parents' recognition. The young man thought that recognition from others proved his value. The philosopher asked a question that we can also think about together. If you see garbage at your office and often pick up for a period of time, and no one noticed you did it, praised you or thanked you, would you keep doing it? The young man's answer was that he picked up garbage for all the people working at the place. If he couldn't even get a word of thanks for what he had done, he didn't want to do it anymore. If it were something that takes more time or needs more energy, there might be less motivation to continue. At that time, I found it hard to hold on, too. The philosopher pointed out that the reason why we think this way has something to do with our education. We will be praised if we do the right thing, and we will be punished if we behave badly. In this kind of education, we gradually form the idea that if there is no recognition, I will not do the good thing, and if there is no criticism, I will do the bad thing. But we don't live to meet the expectations of others. The philosopher also quoted a Jewish saying, "If you don't live your life for yourself, who will?" I hadn't known that came from Judaism. In the same way, we shouldn't get angry when someone's behavior doesn't match our expectations. In the past, I always looked at others' facial expression, so the trump card of interpersonal relations was held in others' hands. After learning the separation of subjects, the initiative was transferred to at my own hand. I still treat the world with kindness, but how others treat me is no longer my subject. What do you think? Will you feel easier and freer? The philosopher said, to be free is to be disliked. It's true that when you're being yourself, some people will think you're selfish or willful, and that's when you need the courage not to be afraid of being disliked. As more people realize this problem and stop interfering in other people's world, interpersonal relations will become easier and more harmonious. Adler's psychology also proposes that keeping a proper distance is to avoid unnecessary conflict, and the ultimate goal of interpersonal relations is the sense of community. Adler's community includes not only human society but also non-living things. Let's start with what's around us. The philosopher said that the smallest unit of society is you and me. There are at least two people to produce society or community. All troubles originate from interpersonal relationships, and so does happiness. When we contribute to our community, we feel happy. Think about your relationships with your family, friends, and partners. Some students are bullied and discriminated against at school, and some employees are isolated and neglected in their offices, so that they can't feel a sense of belonging in the community of school or workplace, let alone feeling happy. If you're in a similar predicament, remind yourselves that there are larger communities, like society. In human society, we are all equal. If we are treated unfairly or have unreasonable demands, we should resist and refuse. Living in constant fear of breakdown of relationship is not a healthy way to live. There must be more communities in the world that are suitable for you and need you. You can change if you want to. Adler Psychology says everyone can change. What do you want to do but you couldn't? What's stopping you? Is it past experiences or present conditions? The philosopher told the young man that it was we who were stopping us, that we always choose the safer, least taxing way of life. Because people who have the same experience, people who have the same psychological problem, chose in a different way and their life became different. There is an example in the book, a girl who suffered from blushing phobia and hoped that a philosopher could help her. The philosopher asked her, "What do you want to do if you are cured?" The girl said she could confess to the boy who she liked. The philosopher immediately understood that the girl was afraid of being rejected and used blushing phobia as an excuse. Later, fortunately, that boy confessed to the girl first, otherwise the girl would have regretted for not having the courage to confess. The philosopher also had a friend who dreamed of becoming a novelist, but he said he was too busy with his work to create good works, and of course could not enter any competitions. In fact, he was afraid of being denied or rejected in the election, which he always decided to escape from, by saying that if there was enough time, if the conditions allowed, he could do it. In life, do we take advantage of physical condition, environment or other factors to avoid failure and embarrassment? This is called teleology, different from Freud's cause theory, which tries to figure out why you don't change, it's not your fault that you couldn't change and so on. It does relieve stress, but it doesn't offer a solution. Yet teleology says that people make certain choices in order to achieve certain goals. We can change our lives by changing our choices. Another different idea from Adler's was to view life as a number of dots, not a line. The dot is the moment. Life is a continuum of many present moments. Many people see their life as a line. Only by studying hard can they be admitted to a good school, find a stable job, and then form a happy family. It seems that happiness can be achieved only along this path. Is the purpose of a trip just to take a photo of scenic spot? Doesn't the trip start the moment we leave our home? Is it not a trip if you don't get to the scenic spot? Every moment you drive to your destination is journey. People who live seriously in the present, without paying attention to the past or the future, like under a spotlight, can't see the rest of the world clearly. The past can't be changed and has nothing to do with the present moment. If you carefully live the present, you won't have to worry about the future, right? These two authors collaborated on another book, called The Courage to be Happy, which is also based on a conversation between the philosopher and the young man. After the previous discussions, the young man chose to be a teacher, and has been following the Adler psychology's principle of neither praise nor criticism for education of children, but the effect wasn't good. So he went to the philosopher again. The sense of community proposed by Adler refers to a state in which each individual in the society realizes independence, trusts each other, accepts each other's unique existence, and constructs an equal relationship. The philosopher told the young man that he probably couldn't respect the children in his heart. Adler believes that everyone should be respected. We shouldn't impose what we think is right on children when we think their behavior is childish and inefficient. In this way, children refuse to accept your advice or won't come to you for advice when they encounter difficulties in the future. When we take our children to the park, and we may think the slide is more interesting, but for them, a leaf on the ground or the busy ants may be more interesting. Adler psychology suggests that education should take the form of offering help. Give your child a helping hand when they think they can't handle it and need really your help. Care about what they care about, explain patiently when they don't understand, and let them judge and choose for themselves. Adler believed that happiness comes from unconditional love. Don't ask others to change too much for you, accept them as they are. Loving others is our problem. How they treat us is their subject. Wanting something in return is not unconditional love. But can it really be done? What if we're betrayed? This is where courage comes in. We need the courage to be happy. Although I have not become the brave person described in the book yet, some theories and methods in the book have formed a power in my heart, which will support and encourage me when I am weak, timid and wavering. I also hope more people can benefit from it. Well, that's it for my today's video. If you like it, don't forget to comment or subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Bye.